7 in the evening. The watch on your wrist buzzes and the ring closes. 10,347 steps. Day 214 in a row. 40 minutes this morning before the coffee went cold. And your knees never said a word about it. Your breathing stayed easy the whole way out and the whole way back. You came in through the storm door feeling good. And you should. Then the doorbell rings. You get up out of the recliner. And your right hand goes down on the arm of the chair and pushes. You didn't decide to do that. Your hand was already there. It has been going down on that armrest for a couple of years now. And nobody watched. And nobody wrote it down. And you have never once caught yourself doing it. 40 minutes of walking this morning. And your body never asked you for anything. 2 seconds of standing up tonight. And it asked for help. Both of those happened today. In the same house. On the same pair of legs. Walking didn't fail you. That 40 minutes did things for your heart and your blood sugar and your sleep that nothing in a bottle can do. And we are going to say all of it out loud before this is over. Walking finished the job it was handed. Every morning. 214 mornings. The job was just smaller than you thought. So, the question for the next 20 minutes isn't whether walking works. Because it does. The question is what walking was never asked to do. And what has been quietly walking out the door beside you the whole time. There are 2 different things your legs do for you. And only one of them has ever been counted. The first is holding a small amount of force and repeating it. Over and over. For a long time. That was this morning. Something like 5,000 steps. One behind the other. Each one asking your legs for a small piece of what they have. The second is making a large amount of force. One time. Right now. That's the recliner. One of those 2 has a number on your wrist tonight. The other one has never been measured by anything you own. So, open the other chart. The one nobody keeps. At 56. You walked at about the speed you walk now. You stood up out of a chair in under a second. And you had no idea you were doing it. Because there was nothing there to notice. At 62. Your walking speed was about the same. Standing up had picked up a small rock forward first. A little wind up before the push. And you could not tell anybody what year that started. At 68. Tonight. Your walking speed is still about the same. Standing up takes about 3 seconds and a hand. Read down those 2 columns one more time. Go slow. One of them barely moved in 12 years. The other one changed completely. Same legs. Same 12 years. Same man in the same chair. That's worth sitting with. Because it wrecks the story most of us are carrying around. The story we're carrying is that muscle just fades. Evenly. A little bit off everything. Every year. The way a battery goes down. If that were true, both columns would have slid together, and the 2 miles would have gotten harder at the same rate the chair did. And somewhere around 64, you would have felt the walk turn into work. The walk never turned into work. Whatever left you over those 12 years. It didn't take a little bit from everything you had. It took almost all of one thing and almost none of the other. Here's what that second column actually is. Everything you do asks your legs for some amount of force. Walking asks for a little. A low chair asks for a good deal more. And somewhere above that sits the most your legs could produce if you asked them for every last bit of it at once. The room between what your day asks for and what you can still make, that's the part that left. It never showed up anywhere. Because by definition, it's the part you don't use. Nothing in an ordinary week goes looking for it. Nothing on your wrist counts it. And you can lose a lot of it while your Tuesday looks exactly like it looked 10 years ago. And notice what didn't change tonight. The chair didn't get taller. You didn't get heavier. Not really. What changed is the percentage. That recliner used to ask for a small slice of everything you had. Tonight, it asks for most of it. The first sign of this isn't that walking gets hard. It's that ordinary life starts costing a bigger share of you. And there's no gauge in your house that reads that. Which leaves something that doesn't add up. One pair of legs. 5,000 steps this morning without a single complaint. Beaten by a piece of furniture at 7 in the evening. How does the same muscle hold on to one job and lose the other one completely? It turns out your legs were never all working in the first place. Most of us picture a thigh muscle as one thing. A slab. It works or it doesn't. Like a light switch on a wall. Inside that slab are a few hundred separate screws. Each screw has its own wire running up your leg and into your spine. And that wire wakes up that screw and nobody else. A few hundred screws. A few hundred phone lines. Your body doesn't call all of them at once. It calls them in an order. And that order never changes. Not tonight, and not when you were 19. It starts at the top of the list. And it only reaches further down when the screws it already has can't cover the load. The screws at the top are small, slow, cheap to run. They'll work all day and barely get tired. Which is exactly what you want for 2 miles. The screws further down are bigger, a lot stronger, a lot faster, and they burn out in seconds. So your body treats them like what they are, which is the screw you call when everybody above them isn't enough. Standing up out of a low chair reaches down there. Catching yourself on a curb reaches down there. A step on flat ground gets handled right at the top of the list. It never has to go looking for anybody. Which means that for 40 minutes this morning, 5,000 steps in a row, your body was working off the same short roster the entire time. It didn't need anybody else. That's not a flaw in walking. That's your body doing exactly what it was built to do, which is get the job done as cheap as it possibly can. So, picture a plant with a day shift and an emergency crew. The day shift clocks in every morning. Same hours. Same route. 20 years running. And they're very good at it. The emergency crew sits in a room down the hall. They're there for the thing the day shift can't handle. Heavy lift. No warning. All of it over in about 8 seconds. And the call to that room comes less and less. You stopped moving furniture. You stopped hauling anything up a ladder. The route with the hill on it turned into a flat loop around the neighborhood. And it's a good loop. And the day shift covers it fine. A crew that hasn't been called in 5 years doesn't sit in that room forever. Now here's the part almost nobody hears. Some of what changes happens before the muscle ever looks any smaller. And it happens out on the phone lines. The wires running down to those screws start dropping out as the years go by. It's gradual. It's a normal part of getting older. And nobody gets out clean. But a crew with a deadline doesn't get woken up by anything. Not by a heavy box. Not by a curb. Not by you deciding on a Tuesday morning that you're going to get serious about this. Some of those crews go quiet for good. Others get picked up by a slow line from the top of the list. And from that day forward they work the slow shift. Same men. Same building. New schedule. They're still down there in your leg and they'd show up on a scan. They're simply not fast anymore. And nobody sent you a letter about it. That's also why your legs look about the same in the mirror. The weight of the muscle holds on a good deal longer than what the muscle can actually do. So, you can lose a serious piece of your top end while the same pants fit the same way they did 5 years ago. Which brings us back to your hand on that armrest. Because one of the first abilities to slip isn't strength. It's how fast you can produce it. A walking step gives you about half a second to get your foot where it needs to go. The lip of a rug gives you about 2/10. Walking has been rehearsing that half second 5,000 times a day for 20 years. It has never had any reason to rehearse the other one. 20 years? A few hundred crews. Lines going quiet one at a time. None of them on a day you'd remember. And not one morning in the whole stretch when you woke up and felt short-handed. So why didn't anything tell you? Your body files a complaint about everything else. Skip lunch, and it lets you know inside of 2 hours. Sit on your own foot wrong, and it lets you know in 5 minutes. Stay out in the yard too long in July, and it tells you that night. In detail. For as long as it feels like. 20 years of this. And it never said one word. Start with the reason nobody thinks about, which is that the only way you ever check your legs is by using them. And what you use them for every single morning is the smallest question anybody can ask a leg. You can lose a great deal off that back end and still finish the same loop at the same speed that you finished 10 years ago. The route doesn't get longer. The hill isn't any steeper. Your knees hold up. Everything about that walk comes back clean. Because everything about that walk is being handled by the crews that never left. You've been giving yourself an exam every morning for 20 years. And passing it every morning. And it was never the exam that could see this. The walk isn't lying to you. It just can't see that far down the roster. Then there's the second reason. And this one is going to sound familiar. The hand on the armrest. The hand on the stair rail on the way up. Even on days you don't need it. The little rock forward before you push out of a chair. Reaching for the door frame when you come down the porch step. Taking the hard chair at the restaurant instead of the booth. And telling yourself it's about your back. 2 trips out to the car instead of 2 bags in one hand. The hand that goes down on the trunk lid when you bend into it. Not one of those was a decision. And not one of them has a start date you could name if somebody asked you. Nobody sits down on a Thursday and decides to start using the armrest. Your body found the easier way around a weak spot before you ever knew there was a weak spot. That's what it's for. That's a good system doing its job. But it means you never felt yourself getting weaker. You felt yourself finding easier ways to do the same things. And that feels exactly like being fine. And the third reason is just arithmetic. No year was ever different from the year before it. Because no year ever was different from the year before it. Not by enough to feel. Today gets measured against yesterday. And yesterday was the same. This year gets measured against last year. And last year was almost identical. And so was the one before that. 65 isn't when this starts. It starts somewhere in your 40s. On nobody's birthday. In no particular week. For a lot of people, the 60s are just when ordinary furniture starts noticing. Nothing ever moved fast enough to set anything off. So don't do anything about it right this second. There's nothing to do right this second. But the next time you get up out of a chair, whenever that is, an hour from now, tomorrow morning, don't change how you do it. Just look at your hand. Because eventually a moment shows up that your body can't root around. It's a small one. You'll be back on your feet before anybody in the room looks up. And nobody will mention it at dinner. It's 2 ordinary seconds that happen to ask for the part of you that stopped getting cold. 3 of those moments. Add them all up and you get under 10 seconds out of your entire day. None of them is a workout. And none of them is a test you're supposed to score yourself on. They just happen to be the only 3 places in an ordinary day that reach for the crews you haven't called. The first one is the low chair, the recliner, the couch at your daughter's house, the folding chair at the ball field, The toilet, which nobody wants to talk about and everybody eventually thinks about. The lower the seat, the deeper your knee is bent when you start, and the more your hips and thighs have to produce from a position that gives them almost nothing to work with. The chair makes you begin at the hardest point of the whole movement, and then asks you to do the rest of it from there. 40 minutes of walking this morning never once put your knee down that far. Not one step out of 5,000. And a soft chair is worse than a hard one, because you sink further into it. The nicer the furniture, the deeper the hole. The second one is the step. Walking on flat ground is pushing yourself forward. Stepping up is lifting your whole body weight upward. On one leg. In one motion. With nothing to help you. Those are two different jobs. And they ought to have two different names. The curb outside the pharmacy, the bottom stair, climbing up into a pickup, and a step doesn't negotiate. It's the same height every time, no matter what kind of week you've had. Put 2 grocery bags in your hands on the way up, and you've just added your shoulders, your back, and your grip to the bill. And that 40-minute walk barely spoke to any of them. The third one is the stumble. The lip of a rug, a garden hose in the grass, one sidewalk slab that a tree root pushed up 1.5 inches sometime around 2019. In that moment, your body needs 4 things to land almost on top of each other. Notice it. Decide. Throw a leg out far enough and fast enough to get under you. And plant that leg hard enough to hold everything above it. About 0.2 of a second for all 4. You rehearsed half a second. 5,000 times. Before your coffee this morning. That other window has never come up on the route. And most of the time you catch it. That's the part that never gets said out loud. You catch it. You look around to see if anybody saw. You laugh a little. You keep walking. And you never find out how close that was. Independence almost never goes during the easy repetitions. It shows up in the one repetition that suddenly asks for more. Those 3 moments aren't there for you to grade yourself at home. They just show you where the gap sits. And walking was never sent to that part of the building. Now let's talk about that 40 minutes properly, because it has been waiting the whole video. That walk is doing more for you than almost anything else you could pick up. It's working on your heart and every vessel coming off it. It's working on your blood sugar all afternoon, long after you came back inside. It keeps your knees and your hips moving through their range instead of stiffening up in a chair. It helps you sleep, and it helps your mood on the days that need help. And the people who keep walking into their 70s and 80s tend to keep walking into their 90s, which is not a small thing to hand somebody. 214 days in a row is not a participation trophy. Most people can't hold a habit for 2 weeks. And if you were mostly sitting before you started, that walk absolutely made your legs stronger. That's real. Walk faster. Walk up a grade. Take the stairs instead of the ramp. And you're asking for more still. Walking wins every category it was ever entered in. This one, it was never entered in. Because muscle adapts most reliably when you ask it for a little more than it has gotten used to. That's the whole principle. And it was true at 25, and it's still true at 75. Your morning walk, by definition, is what your legs are used to. You picked that route because it fits you. And that's why you've kept it 214 days. And that is also exactly why it can't do this particular job. You need something that calls further down the roster. That's it. That's the entire idea. 2 days a week. No gym. No barbell. No membership. Start at the kitchen table. Not the recliner. A hard chair. One that sits high and doesn't move, with the counter or a wall inside arm's reach. Sit down and stand up out of it a few times in a row, slow and controlled on the way down. On the way up, go as quick as you can while still owning the movement. And if you need a hand on the table for the first few weeks, use it and take a little less help each time. The recliner is not your starting equipment. The recliner is what you're working toward. Use the bottom stair the same way. Up and down. One leg at a time. Hand on the rail while you learn it. Do heel raises at the kitchen sink while the kettle heats. Push off the wall with your arms. Feet set back far enough that it actually asks for something. Pick up something light enough to control and heavy enough that the last few steps take attention. And carry it from the kitchen to the back bedroom and set it down. Stand on one leg by the counter with a hand resting on it and a sturdy chair inside full reach. Two things decide whether any of that works. Be quick on the way up. In control. Because quick is what you're losing. And add a little every week. One more repetition. One more trip across the house. One step higher. If next week looks exactly like this week, you've just built yourself a second walk. Then stop at your legs and you've missed half of it. Your shoulders and your grip carried those groceries too. If you've got a heart condition, joints that hurt, dizziness when you stand up, or if you've already had a fall, talk to your doctor or a physical therapist before you change anything. And on any given day, if you feel pressure in your chest, unusual shortness of breath, dizziness, or a sharp pain, you stop. Those 3 moments from a minute ago don't diagnose anybody. Bring them in as a question. Don't bring in a conclusion. Tomorrow morning, you'll still walk your 2 miles. The watch will still buzz. Day 215. The only difference is that on the way out the door, you stand up out of that kitchen chair a few times with your hands off it. Nothing you heard tonight made you stronger. 20 minutes of listening never made anybody stronger. And anybody telling you different is selling something. What changed is that you know what your hand has been telling you. The walk was never the mistake. The mistake was asking one movement to hold on to everything you wanted to keep.